forget to share my screen as well. Okay, can you see the screen? Now there's this chat on, but can you see the example as well? Okay, let's just see the other guys also joining. So what I will do for tomorrow is that I will schedule for us an hour session from 6:30 to 7:30, that we just then look at the questions from the simple and compound. So we can go through some of the definitions. Okay, so while everybody is joining, I'm going to schedule for us a session for tomorrow night as well from and if you guys can quickly tell me by when do you need to have your assignment completed? Is it tomorrow evening or the 4th at late evening?
I think this one is the 4th. I'm not sure what time though.
Okay, cool. So we can actually schedule. So I'll schedule an hour for tomorrow as well, from 6:30 to 7:30. So that the things that we haven't covered tonight, we can cover tomorrow night. And again, I will record and I'll share it on YouTube as well, the recordings. And then I'll share the link for you guys in the chat. Okay, so for this one, let's go to the inequalities of a few, and that's nearly the second one will also be, they nearly in words tell you what the inequalities is. So let's look at these on a set of in a graph. So these two is normally just to tell you that you're working in this quadrant. So they tell us y is bigger than 0, x is bigger than 0. So if you add the 4 quadrants, all that this is telling us, it must be in that area and it must be in that area. So you can't have anything in these three quadrants. So that's
Sorry?
Yes.
Your screen is not being shared, or at least not with me.
Okay, let me share it again.
What are you doing?
Can you see it now, Graham?
Yes, I've got it now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so basically, if I look at these two, it shows us y must be bigger than 0, x must be bigger than 0. So you basically will only work in this quadrant. So these other 4 quadrants or other 3 quadrants you will not work into. So the similar is we're going to look at in this instance, or maybe in your assignment, you might get that they give you a diagram with all the different examples, and you need to pick a diagram. So that might also be. So there is a few ways that they can nearly give this to you. Okay, so then with this one, as in nearly how we would have worked out a normal function, we will work it out in this instance as well. So just tell me, is the screen still showing? Okay, so
Yes, I can
like,
see.
okay, perfect. So like in the normal function, I would have said, okay, when x is 0, what will my y be? So when x is 0, that falls away. So let's just write it. When x is 0, that will be fall away. And I will then need to say, okay, but okay, let me just mute. Don't worry. Let's just go on. So 5y will be smaller or equal to 60. So y will be smaller or equal to 60 divided by 5 will be 12. Okay, so somewhere there will be 12. Okay, so when x is 0, y will be 12. So when we do it the other way around, and we say okay, let's make it that y is 0. So if y is 0, we do exactly the same. And we then have 5x must be smaller or equal to 60. So x will be smaller or equal to 6 or to 12. Okay, so there we have a point of 12. So we basically link the two. And what they want us to then say is, well, what is the area that you have calculated? So both of them say smaller. So this nearly is the area that you will be covered. So now some of the previous work that you would have done in the first topic nearly is, so now we are working with area. Area of a triangle is half times base times height, which is half times base, which is 12, and height, which is also 12. So if I then calculate that, 12 times 12 is 144. If I times it with a half, I will get 72. And then that would have been, my answer would have been option C of 72 square meters. I must say this is the first time I've seen that they actually ask you with inequalities to actually work out the area. So I assume that this is something that we will probably ask in your assignment that's due on first day as well. Okay. But basically the same how you would have nearly worked out a normal equation for the x and y. You do it in this instance, but very important nearly to draw the diagram for yourself or the graph so that you can see how it looks like. Doesn't need to be pretty, but just that you actually can see what you're looking at. And then the interesting one that they ask you to work out area. Okay, so let's go into the next one. This I also want to make bigger. So they asking you in a set of or a word format, word sum that they in words they give you something, and then they ask you nearly to translate that into a set of inequations. So let's see if we can work out something from here. A furniture manufacturer company manufactures dining room tables and chairs. The company has 150 hours. So I just want to, so they've got 150 hours, time available per week, and workers must spend at least 100 hours on finishing per week. Okay, a table requires 540 minutes for assembly and 180 minutes for finishing. A chair requires 150 minutes for assembling and 60 minutes for finishing. Each table is sold for that, and chair for that. If X is the number of tables and Y the number of chairs per week. Okay, so let's just for myself, X is tables. Y is chairs. Okay, so now what they should have here is not just, so it's a normal equation that you need to work with, but you also need to know nearly what is, if you're working with total cost or total revenue. So this is very in line also with what is the other subject, DSC 1520. So much in line with those kind of questions as well, where that sign means also profit. So let's see if we can, before we even get to this, can cancel out some of the options. So they tell us the company has 150 hours of assembly time available. A week, and workers must spend 100 hours on finishing per week. The table requires 540 minutes. Okay, so table. So the first thing that we need to look at is, here they talk hours, here they talk minutes. So I would rather want to work in all of these instances where you can see with hours. So 540 minutes is, what is it, 9 hours. So a table requires 9 hours for assembly. So let's tables 9 hours for assembly. it takes 180 minutes for finishing. So 180 is divided by 3. By 60 is 3. So that is another one. So that's, we will put in the wires now. The chair requires 150 minutes for assembly. 150 divided by 60 is 2.5. So 2.5y. The company has 150 hours of assembly. So basically we know that it must be small or equal to 150. So let's just look at the finishing. 60 minutes for finishing. 60 divided by 60 is 1. So it's y. And how much time do they have for finishing? 100 hours. Okay, so these are your first two sets without now looking at any of the costing. So 9x, that's for one, that's for other one. 9x plus 2y must be smaller or equal to 50, 250. So 9x, so here's one formula. So we at least know that's wrong. So A can't be. The second one is 3x plus y must be smaller or equal to 100. What was that bigger? I made a mistake. I spent at least 100 hours. So that is that way around. Okay. At least, so I must spend more or equal to 100. At most is, then can't spend more than that. Okay, so that's right. That one is right. Let's look at that. That's wrong. That's wrong. Okay, so the only one that is correct is the second one. But let's also look at the next one. So each table is sold for 400 Rand, 4,000 Rand. Tables are X, and each chair is sold for 1,500, which is Y. And that is then your total revenue, because your total revenue will be then on how much you have produced. Okay, so did you guys do total cost, total revenue, and those kind of things? I'm just,
Not that I'm aware of up until now.
yes, that,
I haven't done
so
it yet.
yeah, and that's for me interesting. So they definitely, yeah, that's a bit of a,
These questions that I sent in the group, this is the stuff that came in the previous assessment.
so see, so that for me is very interesting then, that they have thrown that in, and hope, what I assume is that they wanted, without that part nearly, that one could have identified that, but sure, this is really a tough one, because I know this comes, I've seen this in 1520, so I know this is from DSC. Um, so this is a bit of harsh one if you're looking at total cost and those kind of things. But I know I haven't seen that at all in your study guide. So I can, in a sense, understand these. This one, yes, because that is inequalities from this one is pushing it a bit as well. But again, if it is an assignment that doesn't count a lot, but this one is also not the easy one, but this one is definitely not even part of a work. So out of and so out of this part, you should have had been able to nearly get to that. But yeah, that part with that you would not have done, which then is a bit of a strange one why they added it. So what I will do, I will the simple and compound grain that you've also sent. I think all the others are nearly simple and compound interest things. With annuities, it might be, but that I will put into a slide pack for us tomorrow to look at. What because what so let me, Robert, take that away. Let me stop sharing, and then we can really just speak so that I can prepare something for you guys for tomorrow night. What calculators are you using at the moment for the simple and compound interest, or are you using the formulas?
Uh, Look, I couldn't get the one calculator, the shop that they recommend. I got the newer version, but it's difficult on this one as well. Compared to the older shop, this one is a bit more complicated. I think this is the
Okay.
7 XP. So you can't really make a fraction on here like you would, or you convert like a decimal to a fraction, and you could see it on the screen on the previous ones, on the previous shop calculator. You
Okay.
can't. That's what's a bit complicated. But now what I did was I'm using the calculator online.
Okay. 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 That is also fine. So yeah, so what I normally use is my HP, but I also have download it on myself, and I'm gonna check for you. Um, and Tokozile, you must also just let me know if what I nearly want to go through those examples that you sent me and see if I can put some of those into the formulas, maybe in Excel or something. Um, that that might also be an option. So when you get your interest or your um, payments per month or your future value or your present
Yes.
value, that you nearly just populate it in Excel and it gives you an answer. So I'm going to play with it tonight and tomorrow during the day, and let me see what I can give back to you guys tomorrow, that you just have another version to work with, because that for me is nearly so. On the HP, it's always for me very, very easy, but it costs money, and that for me is, so I rather want to see if I can't assist you another way that is not pricey. Um, I will even check if there's a HP that can be downloaded. But let me just play around for you guys and see. I think normally I like Excel, um, and I think we can work around that. So let me just play around with those questions that you shared in the chat, and will play with that tonight, and then we can have a session tomorrow again.
It can work, but the calculator that I downloaded, it's actually quite good because it gives you all the different types of
Okay.
calculations. You can actually click on annuities, amortization, any one of those things.
Okay, cool. So what I
That
will show
humans put
to
stuff in.
okay, okay, that's perfect. So what I will do tomorrow is we can go through the questions and I will say, okay, if you have the calculator, this you put as present value, this you put as future value, so that we can do the calculator component, but I'll also replicate it in Excel that we can do the Excel component as well. And then you nearly have the two versions to see which one works the best for you.
Yes. Other thing,
Perfect.
all these graphs. Graphs are just so confusing with these linear equations.
See, and
Difficult.
that for the graph one is, and and they want to make it confusing. Um, and it's nearly, I showed it in one of the earlier sessions, or
We'll
so
go to
so it is definitely in the recording of the first session of tonight. But let me quickly show you what and I think this is nearly what, so I looked at that equation, and yes, we can break it up into how it will look, but what they will probably also give you is four graphs, and then you need to pick which one.
yes, that's what
And
they
I
make it.
think that is nearly um, what what is important to look for. So so in the previous one, I said, okay, I can now work this out, but I see that it goes through four. So your y-axis, the intercept is four. So when I look at these things, I'm like, okay, there's a four. So even if I didn't have a graph, and there's a four. So that will not happen. That will not be the case. So then if I need to guess, I guess between two. Um, but then it's nearly okay. Let's work out the next one, and the next part was okay. Where's the turning point? And we know what the formula is. So by working out the turning point, I got the turning point as two. So then I nearly go back to the graphs and say, okay, here my turning point is 6. Here my turning point um, was 4. Here my turning point is 2. So it must be this one, and then that one is also not correct. And I think that is sometimes easier nearly to identify for yourself what is easy things to work out or easy things to pick out of the equation, man, nearly to work through everything, and then you sit with a lot of things. Um, but I will check if there's not a way that I can just, in a sense, have have a checklist for you guys as well. So let me think, especially for the graphs, is if there's not nearly a checklist that I can go through and say, okay, check for this, check for that, before you nearly start with a lot of calculations.
Please, please, can you check for that? Because this graph are so confusing. Like almost each and every assignment, there's always like graph stuff there. So it's
Yeah. Okay. I will, because it's easier. It's easier for them to give you graphs that you need to pick, than, because that's the easy way for them. Instead of, in the old days when it wasn't multiple choice, they would have asked you to draw that graph. But now they give you like 4 or 5 different graphs and you need to pick. And that makes it actually much more difficult, because it will be 1 or 2 slight changes on a graph, um, that will make it right or wrong. So no, I will write something up for you when you look at linear graphs, what to look for, and I'll do one for the quadratic as well. Um, just simple steps so that you don't go into too much to get to an answer, but that if you know that you've ticked nearly all of the things and the most difficult equate or thing that you need to work out still needs to be done, then at least you know it. But I will do that for you. Okay, so I will set up another session for us, for tomorrow night from 6:30 to 7:30.
thank you
Perfect.
so much.
Cool.
Thank you
Thank
for the time.
Cool, guys. Have a good evening, and let's hope the power comes back on soon.
Hey,
Okay.
let's this power is killing us when the traffic on the
Yes. Yes, totally. Okay. Good luck,
Cheers.
everyone. I'll speak to you tomorrow night again.
okay,
Thank you.
bye. Thank you.
Cheers.